Right, for sure.
It's that kind of world right now. Just Joshing episode 634 is live right now. My guest is the one and only incredible Dustin Brunell. I have never met this gentleman before, but I've heard nothing but good things from various people. I hear you are awesome and made of cheese, good sir. Is this true?
I appreciate that. Yeah, you know what? I'd like to think I'm pretty awesome. I think that's a pretty good assumption.
You might as well just go with it, right? It's like, hey, I am awesome. Yes.
Right. It's that fake it till you make it type of deal, and you really don't have to.
I actually don't agree with that. I don't think it's about faking it till you're making it. I think, see, this is the thing. I think we become whoever we want to become.
Absolutely.
For example,
100%.
right? We become whoever we want to become. So if that's the case, then you're not faking it. You're just doing the parts you can do at the very beginning.
Right on.
And then and then you're willing the rest of the universe to kind of go along with that game plan, whatever that is.
For sure. I got a buddy of mine that's been beating me up about, being there in that moment and realizing what we've accomplished and stuff. And it's real hard to see it. It's like the forest for the trees sometimes, right? You're just like, you're working so hard that you don't get to see what other people get to see.
Well, okay, so I'm going to be an egomaniac here and use myself as an example. I because I got this huge, big head, big ego. You know how it goes, right? Right. I've done 634 episodes of just joshing. I've had guests from New York Times #1 best-selling authors to comic creators who are just absolutely incredible and amazing. I've had incredible success stories. I've seen people just getting started and everything in the middle you can possibly imagine.
Right on.
So here's the thing. Now, in the moment, right, in the absolute moment when you're actually going through with it, right, you don't know, hey, Mayor, how you doing? Welcome to the show, right?
Meredith.
It's Meredith is here. It's Meredith J99. She's here to rock and or roll. I got to chat on. I'm going to finish my little diatribe, then we'll Meredith, feel free to ask questions as you go too. You're as much part of this stream as anything else. And hell, keep inviting people. But here's the deal. We in the middle of doing stuff, you tend to get lost, like you're just doing stuff. Like so here's the flip side. Hey, a wild Jaggy does appear. Hey, Jag Tress, how you doing? See, I said let's just keep the party rolling. Everybody's keep inviting us. Here's the thing. I want to take a living with this podcast. So right this minute, this is exactly where I'm at. I have no idea where my next paycheck's coming from right this minute. I have no idea. I have a little bit of an idea. I'm trying to relocate to another city before things get a little hairy where we're at, right? Yeah. Hey, Nita. How you doing, Nita? Right? So on the one hand, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? On the other hand, I've done 634 episodes. I have sponsorships this month, next month, and the month, and all the way to December already lined up. I'm offering services to do other things. Other income will find its way to me. It's how the universe works, right? There's ups, there's downs, there's ins, there's outs. Basically, you gotta hang tough, and then inevitably Monday, just like magic, poof, success comes your way. Whether it's dollars and cents, whether it's recognition, whatever the case may be. All of this to say that good things happen all the time, and often while we're in the middle of doing what we're doing, we tend to ignore the magic of it. And that's and I think it's easy to do because, dude, you're launching comics, you got people you're in the same boat. Where's this money coming from? How am I going to get the word out? Like, what am I doing? And then there's literally that moment when you're doing something, it's like, what the hell am I doing right now? Am I crazy? And the answer is probably yes, but really don't never let that stop you.
There's a lot of that in there. I'm very happy with where we are. I'm my own worst critic, and anybody that knows me will tell you the same thing. When we put out the first book last year, it was like, oh man, you know what I mean? It was like heart-wrenching. It was all emotional stuff. The book we put out with the listener, it was very emotional, and it was like we didn't know if it was going to go anywhere. And now we're on book 3 of that, about to put a trade paperback out. Now I'm putting out a book every month in the past couple months, and it's getting to be the point where we can be happy about the accomplishments we've made, but there's so much going on that I think, like you said, you have to start looking back and realizing the good things that are happening. You have to pay attention to those little good things, And yeah, absolutely, man. It's all about positivity. I've got a wonderful team of like 24 people right now, and we're probably going to be 30 by the end of the year. Yeah, it's phenomenal, man. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I hear all kinds of cool stuff about you from Nita and Meredith, so I'm really excited about the show. I'm hyped to be on it.
So whatever they told you, especially Nita, it's true. Probably very true. It's
probably true. Yeah. It's good things then, so it's very positive.
Well, okay, true story. I apparently scare Nita a little bit, right? I scare her a little bit, which is kind of fun.
Right on.
Right. But no, I just read people and I get a sense of who and what they are. Like, we all are building stuff. We're all trying to build stuff because I think we all recognize the fact that we're trying to be like what's the term? We're trying to be independent, and I think the thing. I think people used to mock like the independent movement, but the truth of the matter is, it is the future, right? Nita, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't make fun of you. All right. Truth is, I respect the hell out of you. You're a badass. Honest truth. True story. Right. But and she might get me. It's entirely a possibility. But the point is, right, we are all heading down this kind of like this independent road, because the truth of the matter is, like, the system as we know it is about to change dramatically. And one of the reasons it's changing is because, okay, you can print a comic anywhere you want. You can get your book into comic shops. You can get your book into bookstores if you have like trades, right? What do you need a publisher for? And right. like a traditional publisher, in terms of the service they provide, is almost obsolete.
For sure.
Right? So I'm not saying completely like there's always going to be a demand for Superman, Batman, classic characters. There's always going to be a niche for that. But that niche is inevitably going to get smaller because there's so much out there to look and see. Like again, I'm trying to figure my own shit out right now, but truthfully, I like the Kickstarter lineup of books right now because they're just as good, if not better, than what's in comic shops.
I agree 100% with that. I think that the world changed when people realized that a lot of the movies they like were comic books. And it wasn't just that. The biggest one that I can think of, like out of the blue, out of nowhere, that took people by storm, was The Walking Dead. Robert Kirkman put out The Walking Dead, and it was just like, holy cow, that's an indie comic book. I don't really consider Image indie anymore. They've been pretty mainstream for a while now. I think
they're in a weird spot. Hey, Mog, welcome to the show. And Mel, how you doing? You just missed me teasing Nita a little bit. That's okay though. What I'm gonna say is, like, we're in this like really interesting like phase in that Image is a weird spot because they have a brand for sure, like an established brand, but I couldn't tell you what a typical Image book is either. You know what I mean? It's like there's Saga, which is like great, right? There's Homesick Pilots, right? Homesick Pilots, which is a fun little book I'm reading right now. But they're all over the map, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like they're them and Boom. Boom is kind of in that weird spot too, in that they have great like mainstream books like my Power Rangers. They're licensed properties, but they also have some really critically acclaimed books that don't really fit any one particular niche. It's almost like both those companies picked up where Vertigo and Wildstorm and some of these other like imprints have gone.
For sure.
Right. So it's kind of like, so I don't know where to fit them, but even so, like that's almost like a doorway to mainstream comics. If you still want to do DC, Marvel, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Right. It's just like that's the way to do it. I could be wrong, but I mean, that's how I kind of see it now.
I mean, that's the stepping stone progress, right? You start here, you move your way up, and so on and so forth. my goal, when we put out the first issue of The Listener last year, I wanted to pitch to an indie company. That was my goal. I wanted to pitch so bad. I was like, I've been selling books, I've been reading books since I was like 8 years old. You know, I've owned a brick and mortar. I've done everything in this industry other than put my own book out, right? So it was like, put the book out, send it to Image. They're like, hey, look, we're not taking anything right now because of what's going on in the country, whatever. You know what I mean? It's all good. You know, they don't even give you a reply email. It's just this blanket letter.
The shittier rejection letters.
Right. So I was like, well, I'm going to do my own. You know, I don't need anybody else, but I didn't want to make, it's different with us because I didn't want to make a traditional publishing company like other people have done. I wanted to do books that I was writing and series that I enjoyed and bring writers on to my own products. I mean, a la Marvel and DC for so long, you know, created all these characters and then brought people on to write them.
Pretty
cool. That's what I'm working on right now, you know. So right now we're at 6 books and 3 different IPs. And next year, this time, it'll be 10 or 11, I'm thinking, ongoing IPs.
You're taking over the world, my friend. It sounds like you got like a world domination plan.
I pick good friends and I pick good company, and that's how I like to do my business. You know what I mean? So
I get that.
You know, we treat people right and people treat us right. You know what I mean? And that's the name of the game, right? You make friends, you create, you start building from the bottom.
You create communities is what happens, right? You have like-minded individuals. You never completely get rid of, everybody has their own goals.
For sure.
You never will completely get rid of that. But here's the thing, right? Guy like me, I write stuff. I'm somewhat good. I'd be like, so can I play? And you'd be like, I don't know. You look kind of suspicious. So, right. And that right. Whereas, okay, Mog, Meredith, Nita, all of them's like, can we play? You'd be like, I know you people. You rock. Right. And you'll be like, and that's human nature, right? Because you know who they are. Like Mog is badass, right? Meredith is also like a very capable person. Awesome. I think of everybody here, I've said the least nice things about her, but she's incredibly organized, sound, structured. Like she might be the most professional person in this stream right now. It's not even like it might be, right? So I build people up. It's what I do.
I think that's what we need to is as human beings. I think every now and then it's nice to hear something nice about ourselves. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of people aren't used to hearing things polite or kind about themselves. So if we take that time to give that to them, it makes their day or it can make their week. Or
actually, my favorite thing is when you get so kind, they don't know what to do with it. Like they literally don't know what to do with it because like I didn't have to say it, but I did, and I meant it. And you can tell when someone's like authentic about what they say, nice things about you, right? And it's humbling because again, we have to be a little bit of a salesman, right?
For sure.
But if I go say I am awesome and made of cheese and I don't have like a cape and tights and I'm trying to kick some butt in like a professional wrestling ring, it doesn't seem to fit. But the truth is that's good sales.
Right.
It's actually great sales. So I think artists have a tendency to want to let the work speak for itself. Unfortunately, it's a noisy world. You have to have just a little bit of that assertiveness to go with it.
For sure. I mean, just like you sell your book, you sell yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you may not have heard it, and my fans have heard it numerous times. Is I feel like this is an ocean of talent that we've just stepped into. You know, it's a huge ocean of talent. But you're going to evolve one way or another to survive. You're either going to evolve camouflage so you don't get eaten. You're going to evolve speed so you don't get eaten by the big guys, you know. But eventually you start getting to the point where as you grow, you're no longer in fear of being devoured by all this great talent because you're starting to grow your own talent. You know, you're showing how awesome you are as well in this ocean of talent.
Well, what? Oh, sorry. what eventually happens, I've interviewed a lot of people, and what comes to the point, you come to a realization somewhere along the way that everybody is essentially the same. And I'm not talking like in terms of talent, but in terms of just who they are as people. We all want the same things at the end of the day. And when you can actually put yourself in that position, and understand that like different levels of success require different expectations from people. And I think that's the hardest thing to understand about success is it's not achieving something. It's staying on that level or trying to get past it and just going to the point where people are, how do I put this? Because you achieve one great thing, what people are going to expect is you're going to achieve another great thing.
Absolutely.
Right? And you achieve another great thing, people are going to expect you to achieve yet another thing. Right? And that's just human nature, right? Sure. Both sides. And there's a point sometimes you're going to look at something you do that's amazing, but how the hell do I top that? And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you really can't. Sure. And I think the biggest enemy for an artist isn't failure. And maybe enemy is the wrong word, but I think the biggest challenge for an artist is coping with success. Because it's understanding who you are, what you offer, why people tune in. That's super important.
Yeah, of course. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think that we all feel so. I don't have the talents that some individuals have in certain areas, just like anything else. You know what I mean? But we have our own skill sets, right? As individuals, like. I can write a banger. Pretty quickly. You know what I'm saying? But I can't go out and fix your car or, you know what I mean, or do anything awesome like that. But I can bring different things to the table that people have not read before and or seen before. And I think that's what we bring the difference. I think nowadays with so many amazing, talented indie creators that you have to stand out. You know what I mean? You have to be able to bring something that you haven't seen. You've interviewed a lot of people, you have now, but I assume having interviewed so many people that sometimes they're the same type of interview. It's the same type of questions. It's the same thought processes sometimes.
Yes. I get where you're going. I would say that it really depends on my guests. I've had some. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it depends on my guest.
100%. Yeah, but there are people that are like-minded, and you know what I mean. Follow that same path. You know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, but you have to make it interesting as well. You know, as an interviewer. You know what's making it interesting, and I think that's the key point that you've discovered. And as indie creators, we have to discover what's interesting to people. I refuse to recycle a product. I absolutely refuse. Like when Marvel put out the Sentry, it blew my mind. I was like, it's yellow and blue Superman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What? You know, and as I grew up with comic books, you kept seeing that occur. You know what I mean? Slade and Wade. You know what I mean? All these characters were coming out that were just the opposites of each other. You know what I mean? It's just color characters. So when we came out with we started putting our books out. I was like, I don't want to do anything anybody else has done. Because the first one was so emotionally charged after my uncle's death that it was like, we need to go. We're running. You know what I mean? It's going to be different. So we put out Greed. I'd never seen a story like Greed before. You know what I mean? And that was fun to me. It was great. It was a good time. And it was so much less serious than the listener in some regards. It was like my wife called it the Let Your Hair Down book. Because I'd be in here just jamming out to decent music and chilling and writing this book instead of shutting myself away. You know what I mean? But like now we've got BGD, and Babes, Gore, and Dinosaurs is the most fun book I've done yet. You know what I mean? Most of my stuff is very serious. Not that BGD is not, but it's just a lot of fun. You know, and it's all in the title, man.
No, it creates a certain I think Frank Cho. The moment I heard that, that's the expectation I have, because
Absolutely.
that's who comes to mind there when I think of something like that.
For sure.
But also on a personal note, I'm writing a novel right now where literally dinosaur shit is the weapon of choice.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where, well, I'm a big fan of the Russian army, the Night Witches, the actual like World War II like
right on.
troops,
For sure.
right? So in a parallel universe, instead of flying planes, they're flying dinosaurs. They're literally bombing the enemy with dino shit. It's like it's one of those.
That's mad fun to me because it's a.
Oh yeah, no, it totally is. No, there's you. What we do as storytellers is we play with expectations
for sure
all the time, and what makes a product truly stand out, whether it's a comic, a novel, or a podcast, is how authentic the voice is of the person doing, in my case, how I interview people.
Right on.
In your case, how you tell that story. Right? Because that is going to be that feeling you leave your audience. That's what's going to make the impact.
100%.
Not so much the trappings of a story are nice and they're cool and they can draw people in, but what's going to keep people is that what did that make me feel?
Right. You've got your page turn, right? The page turn is so important. But when, like, I'm a huge fan of gripping your attention. Like, cool, the page turn's great, but I want you to want to turn it way before we get there. You know what I mean? I want you to want it the whole time we're there. And I think I set a standard for myself, and I remember Chuck Snow telling me months and months ago that it was,
awesome.
He was like, you're going to whoop your own ass in the long run because eventually you're not going to be able to top your own pages. Yeah. And I got to this point where I was like, you know what? Maybe, but I'm just going to kill it until I can, and then I'll figure out another way to top myself.
I have two rules. Maybe this will help you. There's two. Create the most compelling page turn you possibly can.
For sure.
But when that fails, have fun. Because if you're having fun with it, so will the audience.
For sure.
That's just how it works.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned about telling stories is I can make it really fun just doing certain, and it doesn't even have to be big things, it's little things really that make the difference. And okay, the other thing I'm working on right now, because it's nearly done, is my next book. I'm finishing off, so I have this dragon that has like the shadow of all these different heads popping out of the shadow, because the dragon hasn't slept in so long. He has almost like all these different personalities, and each shadow represents a different personality. It's in the main dragon.
Oh wow!
But he talks like super speed, because he's so jazzed. He so hasn't been. He's been wired to be awake for so long, right? It's a little thing, but it's a completely, it stands out because how everything else works in the story. It's like, okay, this guy isn't all there, because it feels weirder. And it's a little thing. It's a visually a different thing, and it's a little thing, but people pick up on that kind of
right
stuff.
On. I mean, I enjoy things like that. I enjoy the little nuances. Like the issue of Greed we've got coming out in the next month and a half is the second issue, and we're introducing Lilith and all kinds of other fun things with that particular book, because it's all involving theology and monsters and demons, but with a 10-year-old kid in modern day America dealing with it right now. So it's like, and his best friend's his monster under the bed, who's an absolute dick. So it's like Little Monsters if Howie Mandel was a real ass, like not just a little bit, but like over the top, like not good dude.
It reminds me a little bit. It reminds me a touch of My Pet Monster. You remember that cartoon?
Oh, when we were kids, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, mine's just a touch of that. Yep. Just a touch.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that in so long.
It's one of those things that just popped in my head when you were talking about it.
Orange manacles on and stuff, man. Yeah, so good. But yeah, so like there's a thing where we show them sitting outside the food court and where they're eating like a slice of pizza and whatnot. But if you look at the cup, it has half the Pizza Planet logo on it. Just enough for me not to get in trouble, but you know what I mean? Just a fun nod to people our age that are going back and reading this book going, I know that. You know what I mean?
Oh
That's
yeah.
really cool. You know, and if I like to do things like that because it's interesting. You know, it breaks up things that you're used to seeing because your mind will catch on. It's like a cliff. You're like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I
totally.
caught it now. You know?
Well, we communicate through stories. Like as a species, that's how we communicate.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's what we connect to, which is why I'm kind of worried because I gave up television a long time ago. I'm not cool anymore, Dustin. I've accepted this fact. I'm not cool, right? But the thing is, right? We link to stuff that we've seen or observed. Like, hey, do you remember when? And there's lots of little ways to like put that stuff in there, right? Yeah. That people will like, I got this. Oh, I know what this is, and just invest them right into what you're doing.
Right.
A story I released a long time ago. I had this wonderful idea. It was so I had this question. It's like, in 100 years, when we are something else, how would our descendants describe a Pez dispenser and look at an empty Pez dispenser and what they see?
Oh man.
Right? I actually threw that in there as a junkyard thing, right? They find this like animal head and like there's no candy and it's like, what the hell is this? And it gave me, but I mean, it was like, oh my God. And then I had like this other big deep thought, which was, oh my gosh, what if all these like religious things we think about in ancient history, what if they were just toys parents bought kids?
Oh man.
I really like that thought, right? I really like that thought. And
yeah, the road to the epiphany that you're pulling through.
It's just like, it was just one of those moments where it's like, oh my God, like, and then in that one real sense, I have a bigger connection now to history because again, we're not that different no matter what era we're from. We all have the same wants. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the Egyptians thing for comics was, but I'm sure they had something, right? Because look at their hieroglyphics, man. I mean, they're visual, right?
Oh yeah, right on. I dig that.
Yeah, right. Like you just look for connections, and you'll see them, and it's like we're not that different, and it's the truth. Like comics are the same thing. You're gonna put little pieces of story that really kind of just touch us in the same way because we all remember the cool shit. Like, I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. I'm a huge Ninja Turtle fan. You think I'm not going to put some Ninja Turtle references in my comics? Of course I am, right?
For sure. Yeah, I totally dig stuff like that. Like, just little nuances of, hey, look, are you paying attention? You know, like, I understand that there's all kinds of strippers and stuff in BGD, and there's naked dinosaur chicks and human chicks all around in these pages. But at the same time, there's nuances of things. If you're paying attention to what's going on, if you could tear your eye away from just these particular aspects of a page to see them.
Ignore the boobies for just a second. There's other cool things here too,
right? I promise.
Yeah, you can go back to them. It's all there.
They'll be there for a minute. You know what I mean? They're not going anywhere. The funny thing is, there are not as many as people are assuming, and I think that's really funny. And I'm enjoying the feedback on that, you know.
It doesn't have to be. Actually, the thing is, it doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to. So the everybody used to joke, I read Playboy just for the articles, but if you look at the old Playboys, there were some good articles in there, and on top of the nudity, there's a science fiction like anthology called the Playboy Book of Science Fiction. I had no idea up until that point. All these authors wrote science fiction short stories for Playboy, and they were actually legitimately in regular issues of Playboy. Awesome. Yeah, right?
That's so cool. Yeah, we put BGD out, and we put these beautiful covers on it and stuff. And to preface this, when I put Greed out, everybody thought it was going to be a kid's book before they got it in their hands. and then it was like, I got so many messages from fans talking because they'd come from my other series, The Listener to Greed, and they were like, this is awesome. We thought you were going in a whole different direction. And it was a lot of fun. We've done the same thing with BGD. You know what I mean? It's as deep and as dark as my other books are. It's not the sum of its title. You know what I mean? And that's the fun part about it. And I think that it's a lot more, it's a lot deeper because we've created a world, an actual world. I'm not good at 3-page miniseries or 3-book miniseries. I'm really not good at stuff like that because I always want to know more about characters. Like I always want to know what's going on. like you use Spider-Man. It's the best example for me. All right, so Spider-Man, he's got the Sinister Six. One of those characters is showing up in a book every other couple months throughout history of the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what are they all doing when they're not dealing with Peter Parker? You know, and I always wondered. I was like, man, what are these badass characters doing when they're not dealing with him? So I started putting this series together for BGD, and I was like, man, it's a world. This huge metropolis with 4 different quarters that we have in it, you know, surrounded by a world that is just decimated. So it's like, what's going on with all these different characters in all these different places? There's got to be killers. There's got to be cops. There's got to be politicians. There's got to be all these things in it. But they're all leading toward their own books and their own series versus just giving you BGD. And eventually it's going to get to the point where BGD is just an overarching title for the actual series itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much fun, man. I literally have, I've had a ton of fun with it. It's, you know, but from, you know, shootouts between characters in the middle of a bar to, you know, introducing Spanglish speaking characters, you know, and just all kinds of other really, really fun little nuances that I've yet to get to do in my other IPs, you know, so it's like, it's interesting.
No, like here's the thing, right? Like you can go as deep as you want to go to, right? Like there's the important thing is you have a good story to tell with these characters. That's the important thing. But assuming you have that, you can do. So again, I'm a book nerd. I'm a comic guy, but I'm also like a book nerd.
For sure.
So and one of my big book nerd things is, and I'm going to openly admit that some people will laugh at me when I say this. I love the Kate Daniels world by Alana Andrews because it
sounds.
No, it's urban. It is urban fantasy. It like right. So here's the part, right? I got introduced to Alana from a friend of mine. She goes, yes, she's a romance novelist, but great voice. This is like urban fantasy, so it's got some romance elements, but it's got a lot of fantasy elements too.
Right.
Surprisingly deep characters all the way through. Like the main character is Kate Daniels in the first little bit, and you get introduced into her world, and now all these characters now are getting their own books, their own places to go, which is really like it's expanded from this like one series to now many different series, and it's the same thing. But the thing is, because this is what happens, you write these characters, you realize they have more to say, and first question you have to ask yourself is, does it have a lot more to say or a little more to say? If it's a little more, maybe you don't tell that whole story. You just let that kind of hang.
Right.
But there are some characters like, no, I got this huge, giant, big ass mouth. You get it. You got a story here. You got to keep going with this.
Right.
And it's like, okay. And then where does this go? And where does this go? And how does this tie? And then eventually it'll get to the point, it's like my head hurts. You're going to have this giant like chart. Okay, this character goes to here, goes to, God damn it, where is it? Right? And continuity can be.
I live that life right now. I'm literally kicking my own ass because I'm like, this is so cool, but what have I done? You know, my life is gonna suck right into this real quick for quite some time, you know. But it's exciting because we did an 8-page promo for this book. Never done this before, right? So we put it on an 8-page promo. We gave it to one of the cover artists, and then we gave it to then we took it to MegaCon Orlando with us.
Nice.
And I sold out of every one of them within like day 2 of being there. And it was the feedback we've gotten from people has been so positive and so much fun that it was like, cool, we're on it. You know what I mean? We're on it with this one. And every time, like you said earlier, you mentioned the fact that it's like you have to be able to top the last one you put out, or at least be having a lot of fun with it. And it's like, man, I didn't know I'd be able to top that. I didn't know I'd be able to top that. And all of a sudden we're doubling sales right now.
Oh, yeah.
Current campaign, you know, and it's fabulous. And it's so exciting because it's like a different direction than we've gone. This is literally like my ode to 80s action and sci-fi. You know, if you were a fan of, you know, Ninja Turtles, you're going to really, really like this book. If you're a fan of, you know, Blade Runner, you're really going to enjoy this book. You know, all these little nuances, you know, like Total Recall, all these things helped build me as a person when I was younger, you know. So now it's like, cool, look, now I'm going to write about the sci-fi stuff I haven't got to write about.
So what were your big aims? And this, I think, the first question I've actually asked you this whole conversation. What are you? What was the stuff you loved growing up? Because it's probably that different stuff you're telling.
No, so I was a huge fan. When I was a kid, we lived on a farm in Virginia. So when it came to comic books, I literally got to go to the local gas station like once a month and get a book or two off a spinner rack, and they'd never be in continuity. You know what I mean? I'd never be able to read the next issue of what's going on. It was a lot of things, but one of the books that stood out to me as a kid, there was an issue of Captain America, and sadly, I don't even collect Captain America, but there was an issue where he was in the Savage Land, and he was fighting these dinosaur dudes in the Savage Land. And it all tied into Peter Parker and the story of Peter Parker and Dr. Stegron and all that stuff. But it was a very interesting thing, and I love dinosaurs. So it was like Dino Riders were huge for me. Love Dino Riders, and, love Ninja Turtles, the black and white stuff before my mom, who was overly Catholic, found out what it was. All those, you know what I mean? Wish she hadn't now, you know what I mean? But tossed all those. And same thing with Transformers. There's a huge Transformer fan. Tossed all those because there was language in the old black and white Transformers.
Oh, absolutely. No. There's language. Like again, all the indie stuff, all the really cool shit. Right. You had all the cool stuff in it, and then you get this like Comics Code thing. You're like,
yeah. And that's how it was for us. And I was a huge fan of Dino Saucers. I don't know if you're familiar, but
not familiar with that one. But the name rings a bell. Yeah.
Dino Saucers was put out by Coca-Cola. They had their own cartoon. And Dino Saucers was like a Transformers with dinosaurs. They were like alive, and they'd be humanoid, like anthropomorphic characters. Then they could do this like crazy maneuver and turn into their like primal forms. It was a really, really cool show. It didn't last very long. I think it was like a season. But all those things, plus the Schwarzenegger stuff, the Last Action Hero, all cool.
Last Action Hero, I grin at it and I'm sad at it at the same time. It's almost good. It's almost good.
Absolutely. And all those movies I was a huge fan of as a kid. And then when Cool World came out, it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind as a kid. And I was like, you know what? That's really, really cool. And then Space Jam came out. I remember loving seeing these characters in this real world scenario. It was the first couple times we were actually putting outside of Who Framed Roger Rabbit characters on the screen with living human beings, and it blew my mind as a child. So when I got now, as we're putting the story together, I'm like, holy cow! Can we make a dinosaur chick hot? You know what I mean? Can we make a dinosaur story interesting? Can we make this cool? You know what I mean? Who's going to get into it? Are they going to call it a furry book and avoid it because it's got this, and this in it? And it was like, you know what? If there was ever a time to put out a story that made some waves, it would be right now, because all the cats that were the same age I was watching these things as kids going, Ninja Turtles was badass, Space Jam was badass, and everybody wanted a piece of Lola Bunny back then. So I don't give a shit what anybody says. So now we're at this point now where all those cats are the same age group, and now they're all the ones going, man, that's actually pretty cool. I liked Ninja Turtles. I liked Street Sharks. I liked this. I liked that. We couldn't get as kids. It's like, I'll tell you what, BGD is like if you took all those badass things, rolled them up, and then they grew up with you and they aged with you. That's what BGD is. It's fun, it's gory, it's dark, but there's interesting things. I mean, I've got serial killers, like I mentioned. I've got all these different stories that will end up having their own roots and grow wings themselves, but it's fun and people dig it.
So I'm gonna ask this: is this your Sin City? Is this your Sin City?
This is absolutely my Sin City. This is absolutely my take on when we came out the Listener, and then we did Greed as an offshoot, because they're both ongoing series. I was like, these are just, couldn't believe how big it had gotten and how popular and where we were going with it. But this this is a world of characters. It's not just a few that we write that we're following, like it is with the Greed and the Listener. This is a whole world of characters that are interesting, because our main bad guy that you get introduced in, it's not really a bad guy to him. He doesn't consider himself a bad guy, so therefore he's almost like an anti-hero kind of dude, you know what I mean? But he's got his own issues. Now we want to know about his issues. What is he defending this part of the city from? Why is he in this place in the city? How come he gets to make these decisions? Why is a mob running this quarter of this city? There's all different kinds of nuances. And when we're kids, I think the action is what's there. I think these mega high points are what catch your attention. The chick with 3 boobs in Total Recall, you know what I mean? Those little teeny, and the dude on dude's stomach, Quaid, talking to Quaid and whatnot. And it's, was it Quado? Something, yeah, Quado, something like that. But yeah, those were the moments that stuck out to me. Same thing with like Ghoulies, especially the second one where they've got the chick in the shower and they got the plunger on her face. There are nuances to these things that catch our attention. And as we grow older, there are still those things that catch our attention. And I wanted to be able to do a story that would literally go, holy shit, put the lotion back in the basket.
At least I can respect your bluntness there. That's hilarious. So here's the thing: like as a kid, you only get like a percentage of the shit you get as an adult. Like you don't see it, right? I look at you talking Bugs Bunny. I can look at some of the really, really old Bugs Bunny cartoons. It's like, wow, I was naive as a kid. As an adult, not so naive. It's like, oh boy, right? Mm-hmm. Right. That's it. That's one part of it. Another part of it is like you realize like the really, really good stuff appeals to all ages, not just kids. Especially when you're doing like kid stuff, it should appeal to all ages, because if it doesn't, it's not going to be very good or long lasting. Yeah. Right. But for the record, I never found Lola Bunny hot. I found the Pink Power Ranger hot. I thought she was hot. That was my
Kimberly was what's up. You know what I
mean? Yeah. That was me. That was my like, that was that as a teenager. But like, yeah, it's just it. Like we go back and then we look at it and it's like this stuff goes away for a while and then there's nothing there. Like right now, it's like it. And you're like, I bet you people would like this. And sure enough, people like this. And it doesn't, like, again, going back to my message at the very beginning, human nature doesn't change. It's just like we just every once in a while we need to change the flavor of ice cream. Every once in a while. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's about it.
We are creatures of habit, to say the least.
Yes.
For sure. I think that I think it's really hard for people, like right now, when you're a comic reader, right? And unless you've dipped your toe into the indie industry, I think it's hard for people to recognize indie comic books, because most of the time you're like, whatever. But we've come a long way. Look at Stray Dogs right now. Stray Dogs is doing incredibly well. I haven't read it, have not, but I know that it's doing really well. I sadly have not pulled my nose out of my own keyboard in almost a year. So it's like,
that's normal. That's totally normal. No. Okay, dude. I'm a video gamer. I'm replaying Chrono Trigger right now because I'm old. Great game, right? Awesome game. I'm at that point where I'm fighting Masamune. I haven't gone by there in a month. I've been too busy doing my own shit. Like, dude, we're adults. I hate to say this, but we're fucking adults. Sometimes you just Jack. Of course I'm playing Chrono Trigger. It's a wicked game. Right? It's a wicked game. But I say that because it's just like that's normal. Like I'm not cool enough for television. I've accepted the fact that I will never be cool enough for television again, right? But I do love me some video games, but I don't have the time. So what I'll do right now is occasionally I'll play Shadowverse, a collectible card game called Shadowverse, and I'll play because I enjoy those, and they're quick. Like I can play like 30 minutes of my life going into a card game a day is probably okay. Right. I don't have the time to play the really cool games for very long right now. I'm sad about this. I'm happy, but I'm sad about this too. If that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get it. Because I'm totally like, everybody's like, hey, did you read this? And I'm like, no, not yet. Hey, you should get this. Oh, yeah, sure. Like, I got I bought the last Carnage, like, compendium that came out, that last huge event. It's like 800 pages, you know, and it's sitting upstairs. And I'm like, I really want to read that. But right now, I need to know what Ricky's doing to this character right now. This needs to, because I am thankful. I when it comes to me, it goes, and it goes. You know, so it's like I always wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. I always wanted to write actual novels as a kid, and it turned into writing Werewolf the Apocalypse games and campaigns and stuff, and D&D campaigns, and so on and so forth, all the way up till I was almost 30 years old. You know, writing them. And like I said, I had a brick and mortar, so we were selling them at the shop for dudes to play there at the shop because they liked the campaigns, you know. So cool, yeah. And this, on the other hand, though, has been a very different experience. And I'm very grateful for the fans. I'm very thankful for everything going on, and I'm really stoked about what we've created so far and who we're adding. You know, who we're adding to the team, and you know, all the incredible artists we're working together with, you know, and what they've got going on, and the stories that they themselves are putting out, and so on and so forth. It's just been an incredible experience, man. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that they've had faith in me enough to be like, hey, look, we want to be a part, you know, and it's like really cool, you know, because when you start this, I'm in a place now, and I'll own it because I got yelled at by Nita and Meredith about not owning it. I'm in a place now where people strive to get for years.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, cool. Let's talk about how good it is where we are, because now we can bring on this individual. In the comic industry, it's like film, right? So when you go to do a film, you're not, if you've never been out before, you're not getting A-list actors or A-list teams that want to work on your film most of the time. You know what I mean? So, like now, when we started book one, it was like we had a couple A-list buddies from working in the industry that were like, okay, cool, you know, we'll work with you now, da-da-da-da-da-da. But it was like most of the folks that we had worked with were really cool folks that didn't have large followings, you know. But as we've gotten forward and moved forward, they've stayed with us, thankfully, you know, the people that we were with originally. But they're growing their own followings. And now it's like when we put out a new product, people that are a little bit further along and more advanced are like, hey, look, we'd like to be involved. And that's a really, really cool feeling when you go in, because now it'd be like maybe Val Kilmer would want to work with me right now because of, you know, he's slowing down a little bit and things are, you know, not as...
Well, it's okay. So I'm going to build you up a little bit more than that, because I think you're still selling yourself just a little short, and we're gonna build you up a little bit more.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Okay. When I started my show, okay, it's odd because I've never had a problem getting interviews, but it was who I was getting interviews with. I get the odd big name, but for the most part, it'd be little people here, little people there, like people that weren't as well known, and that's just part of the deal. Like that's how you start. You have to prove you actually have a track record of doing this. Towards like when I after the first 50 episodes, I started getting bigger names, right? Bigger people who were on television, people who had been not like bigger novelists, bigger comic book creators. Right? I started like I've had J.M. DeMatteis, I've had Terry Moore, and I had that in the first 100 episodes, right? Okay. So yeah, right. So that started to happen. And then suddenly everybody realized, holy shit, he's got a good show. Can I come on? And that's how it goes, right? That's how it goes.
I love that energy. Yeah.
Right. That's what happened. That's what's happening with you. You started, you're like, okay, we'll see how serious. This is how it works. This is legitimately how it works. You are people. I want to do this, and everybody's like, go for it. Like they're not like being mean about it. They're like, cool. So show me, right? Right. So show me. No matter what obstacles in your way, you gotta do it. Prove it to me, right? Okay, so I do it. Holy shit, he's serious. So my favorite story about that is like I was living with a buddy in Calgary, and he brought he brought a very pretty but very, how do I put this delicately, crazy woman. And I told her, I told her what I did for a living. It's like, I'm a writer. She's like, okay. And then I show my books. Oh my God, you're a writer. There was that moment where it really just sank in. Holy shit, he's serious.
Right.
And as an artist, the biggest challenge you have is the respect of your peers in your craft. That is the biggest challenge you will have. Once you achieve that, doors open. That's just how it works. Now, that doesn't mean you might get Val Kilmer, because Val Kilmer will take you seriously because you have a track record. But you might get Nicolas Cage. You might get Mark Hamill. Why not? Fuck it. Don't settle for small. Go big or go fucking home, man. Go big or go fucking home.
The legendary complex. I've just gotten over, and it's obvious that I'm trying to continue to push it back. I had real bad what is it called? Imposter syndrome. Like, it was awful. Like, we'd go to events and people would be like, "Hey, look, we're all going out," and I'm like, "Am I part of that?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's surreal, right? It's so surreal.
It's real, you know?
Because these are people you grew up admiring. These are people that are so talented, and you're asking yourself honestly, what the hell am I doing here? Like, that's a legitimate thing, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And you never. So I ended up. So this is the Aurora Award. So I had international best-selling author Jonas Saul, Aurora Award winner James Allen Gardner, Robert J. Sawyer, Susan Forrest, myself, and the con heads are having lunch together. I'm looking around, looking at myself, going, "What the hell am I doing here?" Right. Because looking across the table, I don't compare if you look at it from that perspective. But then you come to this realization eventually, like this: I belong here. And the reason I belong here, it may not be for the same reason they're here. That doesn't matter. In my own way, I stand out.
For sure.
And that's the thing you gotta, like, when I, like, this podcast won an award years ago.
That's awesome.
And when I was nominated, that was when I hit my imposter syndrome. And when I asked myself, well, how did I get here? Yes, that's right. We have writers in the room. That is totally true, right? That is totally true, Meredith. I was going to say my last point, and then we'll move on past the imposter syndrome here. Here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. Ask yourself always 3 questions. How did I get here? What do I do so well that people didn't ignore me?
Right.
And what could get in the way of me coming back? That's it. If you can answer those 3 questions, you will always be able to keep your imposter syndrome in check.
For sure.
Right.
I'm very thankful that it was pointed out to me by people that I admired, you know, because it was like, "Hey, dude, shut up." You know what I mean? But I was like, oh, man. You know what I mean? It's like you literally have this whole, like, when you go into it, you're like, oh man, all these badass folks. But then they're telling you that they admire the work you're putting out. And you're just like, oh shit. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, yeah, look, I own this. I've done this. You know, I'm excited about this. This is where we are now, because I don't know anybody else. And I'm proud of everybody in this industry, because it's a very difficult place to break into, like really break into.
Oh, absolutely. No, totally.
So if you've done it, you have my full support, you know? So when people are like, "Hey, look, what have you done?" You're like, "Cool, look, I put out 6 books in less than 8 months, and I've had 6 successful Kickstarters. I've got 20 plus employees that get paid a month." You know what I mean? I mean, we're we're spanking numbers.
And Jag Tress's got her eyes are just bulging to the top of her head. So Jag, here's the point, right? This is why I'm very much the way I am too, right? Because even though I'm struggling to find that equilibrium, I know it's out there. And so It's just like, right, it's totally out there. And it's just a matter of finding that niche where you thrive in. And that's the challenge any artist struggles with.
I agree. I think it's very difficult. Like I said, once you realize you are there, you are there, and my biggest thing is I have 2 kids and I'm married and my mom and dad are a little older. I like to be able to, I've done a lot, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've owned a brick and mortar. This is not I appreciate that. This is not there is no turning back now. We're vested and this is the lifestyle, that you've chosen to be in. It's not an easy one, but if you can stick out the shit, you know what I mean, and put your best foot forward and push yourself through it, you'll get where you want to be.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I'm at. I'm at the point where I'm pushing through I'm pushing through the slog. And as I keep building, inevitably I'm going to hit the Twitch affiliate thing. Inevitably I'm going to get more sponsors than I'm getting, and inevitably other things are going to happen. And then I have that. I have other things I'm working on as well. So inevitably it's all going to hit a certain crescendo. And when it does, but I got to stick through.
I can't wait to read the dinosaur book. I'm really excited about that.
What I'll do is when it's a novel, I'll send. You want to beta read it? You want to beta read it,
man? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll
tell you all about it when we get off, and when it's written, you just give me your email. I'll send it to you. No problem. It is one of the wildest things I've ever written. It's so wild.
That is such a cool feeling because, right now, BGD was it's the most ambitious thing that I've written. I knew the listener would be niche. You know what I'm saying? I knew it would, but we have a great fan base for it. But you have an idea when you come out with something where you're going to sit in the industry, who likes what,
I'm going to throw something back at you. What's wrong with niche? What's wrong? Honestly, everything. What's wrong with that?
It's not. When I say it, it's not a negative thing. It's a very. I'm proud of the group of people that I know read that book. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason they read it, and that it's camaraderie almost that you're creating with your fans when you put out a niche book like that.
So let's go one step. Let's go one step further. You're a businessman, right? You're a businessman. You found a customer base that needs service. You found a nice little spot where you fit just fine, and there's nobody near you. And by the time someone figures it out, you're the big guy. You're the higher. You're the mobster in the middle. You're the godfather of this area, right?
I just had one of the coolest names in the indie industry say almost the exact same thing.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
It blew my mind, and now I'm writing a project for him currently. And if you're paying attention, you'll see him put memes about me on the friggin' Facebook constantly, telling me to get back to work or some other shenanigans. But
Does he beat you?
In a good way.
Tough love.
It's all about the love, man. Tough love, getting in there and doing the work. But it's very positive. When I started working with Meredith and Nita, it was a very positive thing for me because I don't get to come out of my space very often because I'm working so much. And I think that's one thing that's integral about this that I can give back to anybody that's just getting into this industry is it's work. Go in, work, expect to work. It's not like one of those things where you're like, oh, it's the dream job. I walked in and I wrote a book and it was great. It's hours upon hours and thousands of rewrites and everything else to get where you want to be at, and
a little bit of that too. It's like, what am I doing with my life?
It goes a long way, it goes a long way because
because again, it's a discipline. That's what Absolutely. It is. It's a discipline. I'm doing a show every day. I'm writing every day. I'm pitching every day. It's a discipline, right? Sometimes it's great. Right? Sometimes money just literally falls into my lap. Other times, right? And that's how it goes, right? That's just how it goes. And you just, it's a struggle, but it's not, the person who wins this game isn't the most talented. They're the most dedicated.
Absolutely.
And they're smart enough to learn from their mistakes. That is the whole of the secret. If you can do that, all right, I'm a freelance writer. I've been hired, I've been fired, I've been up, I've been down, but I've learned every time. And as long as and the attitude goes also in an incredibly long way. There's a place that fired me that I think would hire me back if I got better, because my attitude was they're like, wow, you thanked us even though we fired you. That's actually really cool. Like nobody, because it's an opportunity. I just see it for what it is. You gave me a chance. I didn't hit the home run. That's fine. I can, again, I'm a grown ass man. That's life, right?
We all make mistakes, right? We're not perfect. We can't be like right now. I put out an ad the other day for sequential artists for next year. Okay, the project will come out next year, but it was like I got, I don't know, 200 in the past 3 days. People that have asked for work, and paid gigs for artists are, they're sought after. So it's like you're going, okay, look, let's do it, da da da. But you, like me, I'm like, man, I personalize everything because I don't know. I don't send a blanket. This isn't great. This isn't great. I look at the art. I literally go through all of it, and I'm like, hey, look, you're in, or maybe you should change this, or maybe we'll work on this later. Maybe you could do a promo piece for us, so on and so forth. You're just not right for this particular position because it's not our style. And art is subjective, so you really have to go in and be like, hey, look, man, it's just not for me. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not for me.
You got to look at what works for you, right? And this is one I've had. Okay, so I was asked to pitch something. It turned out to be something great for me. But one of the things I was asked to pitch for, it made it to near the very end before it was cut. But he goes, but what she told me was, it's really good, but it doesn't fit this project
for sure.
And that's a human thing. Like I can throw something out there, and it's like, I think this is awesome. And I mean, and you're getting better at this too a little bit when it's actually the kind of rejection letter you get. Sometimes you get you get the blank space. They're like, okay, this really shit. And sometimes you'll come back, you'll see a personalized letter. It's like, I graduated. They read my shit.
Right. You get the. At least they know your name. You know what I mean? Hey, look.
Which is good, right? That's a big part. Like this is. We're in the business. We're in the rejection business. That's the bottom line. We're going to get way more no's, no matter how far up the ladder we go. We're going to get way more no's than yeses. Now, the no's get nicer the higher up you go, right? But you're still getting no, right? Right.
Absolutely.
Well, yes. And we should get to like promo time soon. But before we get to wonderful promo time, all right? Let me ask you this: you kind of it sounds like you kind of become like this, like you've become a full-fledged comic creator, but also a thriving business in a very interesting time. So from me to you, kudos. That is an incredible accomplishment. I don't care who it is. That's an incredible. You should be very proud of yourself, just for that alone. And I hope your comic book properties, universe, etc., goes to even bigger and better places than it was before. And I wish you nothing but continued success.
Well, I'm gonna start sending them to you so you can check them out and enjoy them yourself as well.
So that'd be kind of cool. And what I'll tell you what, we'll talk off the air. But I think what we probably should do, is I think we have an interview here. What do you think, good sir?
I think so.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Was it as good as they told you it would be?
Everybody said that you were a lot of fun and you were a great dude. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm so stoked to be able to talk about things in a different manner instead of being, because there's like 10 or 5 to 10 questions that most folks ask, right? And if you've answered it so many times,
absolutely.
You get to this point where you're like, cool, look, can you make the interview interesting for the fans? Can you make it, it's like, it's been a really cool experience. That's what I'm taking from it.
Oh, well, I'm really glad. I try to be, I'm me. That's what there really is to it, right? So you got Babes, Gore, and Dinosaurs on Kickstarter. Is there anything else you want to talk about that's coming up first before we dive right into that?
We've got Greed coming up in the next month and a half, the second issue of that. Like I said, that's about a kid and his monster under the bed. A lot of fun. It's based in the world of the listener. So it's one thing about our world is there's a very thin veil between this side and the other side. And when only certain people can cross it. It's generally gods, demons, deities, whatever, and what have you. But this child can for some reason. And when he crosses it, though, the cool thing is in our books, I like to think it's one of the few places in this world where you could see like Christ playing chess with Odin. You know what I mean? It's every theology exists in our world and gets its own respect. So
I'm gonna ask a really dumb question. Who wins that game?
you know, the funny thing about that is I think the Raven may cheat. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
no, I get that, but that's two characters you can't. I'm not sure you can cheat on either character. Odin sees everything.
Try to put the eye over here so you can see what's going on. Maybe have an idea.
It's just one of those, like, who wins that? I look at that. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know.
A lot of fun. The
Yeah.
characters are great. Like you said, we're introducing Lilith in the next issue, so
Cool.
we are bringing in some wild covers, some incredible artists for the covers on that, and then the same. I always do 24-page full color on cardstock for all my books. So you guys definitely get full story and whatnot. Good times to be had. So if you're going to pick up Greed, I would, if you missed the first issue, it'll be available on the Kickstarter for the second book as well, and that's PDFs too. You know what I mean? We don't want to leave anybody out, stuff like that. So you'll be able to do PDFs.
And so, okay, so this is the main event time. So right now it's hold on a second here. I'm trying to find your Kickstarter link. So while we do that, why don't you talk about the lesson you're on the last 3 days of it? Babe, gore, and dinosaurs.
Oh man, BGD is really fun. Like I said, it's like an ode to everything that I enjoyed as a kid. You know, grown up. It's like you've got dinosaurs that are anthropomorphic characters. You've got these really wild situations that all these characters are in. My buddy who just went through book 2 called it John Wick with dinosaurs. You know, the very first review that came in was it was a tour de force for indie comics, and I thought that was the coolest compliment anyone had ever given me. You know, to be able to go, hey, look, you stand out versus all these other incredible dudes. You're there. You know, and to our main character's name is Ricky. He's a retired mercenary who has opened a gentleman's club called Piece of Tail. And it's a right. It's in the back streets of Seno City, the quarter they live in, and it's kind of a dive, right? But it's a nice dive. It's where people can go and not worry about getting shot or getting mugged or anything like that. They can have a good time, and they generally, like, everybody that works there is generally pretty cool folks, you know. So it's all going really well for them. And then this chick comes in looking for a job, and she brings a whole lot more with her than just the look for a job. So, I mean, and she's what we call a tank bred. Her name's Eve. She's a tank bred. Tank breeding is illegal now in our world, but it wasn't until just recently. And what that is you're genetically modifying individuals to make them what you would want them to be, such as slaves, servants, and whatever, and what have you. So it has been made illegal when they brought about the ability to say that AI had rights. And as soon as AI had rights, well, what's the difference between somebody cloning somebody and you having AI? So we like to delve into the deeper things like that. Can you fall in love with AI? Is AI real? You know, is a genetically modified individual a real person? You know, does it have a soul? All these nuances are things that we dive into in BGD. Can, you know, just because it talks, is it real? You know,
what is alive? What is sentient? What is conscious?
Absolutely. You know, and it's not like we have tests in our world to figure out if an AI is right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like we do here in reality. You know, I didn't add that. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting to me to find people's opinions on things like that. So she brings with her a lot of trouble because she's actually owned by an individual, and said individual wants her back.
Which is oddly after what's coming today.
Right.
On that note, good sir, good luck on your last 3 days. I looked at your game, really freaking cool. I wish I could be part of it. I could do something with this one. It may have to be down the road, but want to come back in a month and a half and talk about some more stuff?
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. All right. On that note, stay right here. I'm going to just do like my little wrap up, and then we'll talk a little bit after the show.
Yeah.
For everybody watching and listening, thanks for watching and listening. I want to thank my sponsor, Jen Lieberman, the Year of the What. There is a link here to her newsletter. She's giving away an audiobook copy of her book, Year of the What, which is based off her book, her play, Year of the Slut. It's about someone that's pursuing a more promiscuous lifestyle, and so doing discovers true love, at least how to love herself. So that's a great little book. It's a great little read. You just click on the link, put your email in there, and you are eligible to enter a copy of the audiobook. For everybody else watching, listening, thank you. You want to support this channel, hit the like, subscribe button on this channel. My YouTube is Joshua Pentellaresco. Hit like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up there. My book, Alice Zero, is currently nominated for the Elgin Award. It might have actually won. I'll know in about 7 days. We'll see about that. Alice 1 comes out November 1st. Tomorrow is going to be a special one. My guest is both blind and deaf. So it's going to be a very interesting challenge for their interview. I can't wait to do it. Ken Breggett is his name. It's going to be a blast. But for the rest of you tonight, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. Make beautiful things. It's important now more than ever. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.